Hello, Reluctant Messenger Unleashed Nation. Welcome to episode 24 as we conclude the last chapter of the Reluctant Messenger. Interesting enough, chapter 11 called In the Beginning. I'm your host, Donna Rebadow, and with me is author Candice Sanderson. And we're releasing this on December 21st, Candy's birthday. Happy birthday, Candy!
Thank you, Donna. And I can't think of a better way to celebrate another trip around the sun than with the release of this episode, the final chapter in the Reluctant Messenger. And I want to welcome everyone who's joined us on this journey as we wrap up this book. Thanks for sticking with us.
Candy, we ended last time on page 209, talking about the singularity that was beating like a giant heart. And the message said, this singularity, this brilliant star, exemplified the awareness of God, the Creator, expressing. It represented the life force of our God, consciousness, creating the great central sun, S-U-N/star. This great light began to beat like a giant heart, taking on a life of its own. Its vibrations matched the music of all that is. I love that. Another musical reference. You were ready to describe that vision that accompanied this message when we ended the last episode. So, Candy, I love this vision. It is crystal clear. As I read this section in the book, I could follow you step by step. Could you describe this for us, please?
Yes, Donna, I saw this huge black fabric that reached for miles across space. And there were hundreds of thousands of diamonds scattered all the way across it. And then from underneath the cloth, it's like someone pinched the center of it and pulled it down like this giant hand.
Yeah.
I understood that obviously that movement represented gravity. So as that hand pulled it down, all these diamonds rushed toward the pull of gravity, and they toppled and spilled over this opening. And when they tumbled into this void, they were like swirling, just like water goes down a drain. And I learned later that this is what's called a gravity well. And all these diamonds clustered at the bottom into this beautiful, single, brilliant light. This was a singularity. And a singularity, which I found out from NASA's website, is a brilliant point of light that's located in the center of a black hole. A black hole, according to NASA, is an area in space where that gravitational pull is so strong that light cannot escape. And when that occurs, it's from an exploding star, and that's all those diamonds that I saw, when that's been squeezed into a tiny space. So that's what creates this singularity that's located in the center of a black hole. But the process of creating it is so strong and powerful that it creates something else called an event horizon. And that is a boundary in space-time where nothing can escape. So reading these things on NASA's website was just perfect. It fit hand in glove with my vision. We saw the diamonds, exploding stars. We saw that black hole caused by that gravity. We saw that singularity of light caused by the compression of matter into a small space. What I loved, though, was this was such a simple, straightforward vision, Donna, like many of the visions the messengers show me. I could literally see that force of gravity. I could see the effects of gravity as it created that gravity well for the diamonds to topple down. I could then actually see them at the bottom of the well, all those diamonds clustered together, as bright as it could be to create the singularity. In addition to the vision, the messengers gave me the words, gravity well, singularity, event horizon, as well as the process. I'm glad they did, because I could not have given anyone a definition for any of those words before. I mean, gravity well, I never heard of that. But after the vision, the message continued, and it said that that singularity continued to strengthen. His energy, which we're talking about the Creator's energy, created more awareness, more consciousness. And that's what made the singularity stronger. But there's a change here. A new term is introduced. On the top of page 210, the messengers call the singularity, quote, a great central sun/star. Then the creator looked at this and he said, this is good. Well, look how similar that is to the wording in the Bible, and God saw that it was good. Now, that next paragraph, still on page 210, this was the birth of the universe. It was done. The ultimate manifestation of energies, creation. Light was born out of the energy of consciousness and awareness of all that is. In the next paragraph, the wording changes. The star of the great central sun/sun was formed. Okay? It's no longer sun star, it's personalized by introducing the word sun, S-O-N. And Donna, we see this wording throughout the rest of the chapter. The way it's written is S-U-N/S-O-N. And with that slash mark, and for those who have followed us, when I get these messages, they're verbatim. So they would say sun, S-U-N/S-O-N. But that slash indicates that these words are interchangeable. So we see that comparison right now of Jesus to light. The sun, S-O-N, as the sun in the Bible. I mean, in the Bible, it says he is the light of the world, the light of life, etc. Even in Genesis, let there be light. That refers to both creation and the proclaiming of the arrival of his sun/sun. So the messengers have just compared this singularity, this bright light, to Jesus. We're seeing the message both through that lens of religion, S-O-N, but also through the lens of astronomy by using the word S-U-N.
I'm glad you pointed that difference out, and what a big difference it makes. And after the great central, and I'm going to say it this way, sun/sun was formed, it said, our Father, showing us the vision from the point of view of religion, right, commanded, let there be light. He hurled the light across the new universe with his breath of life, prana, the energy of life force, and in acupuncture we call that chi. And I always was fascinated by that because in Hawaiian, it's aloha. So when you say the ha, it's the breath. So that's another importance of the breath. But this is when the singularity exploded, forming an event horizon. And we're viewing this through several filters, Candy. The message says, an explosion of his awareness, an explosion of consciousness. I love that. That created a stargate, another term. As the light from the singularity exploded, the messengers even called this the Big Bang. So let's unleash the theory here. So we have three concepts, everyone. One, we got the event horizon, a stargate, and the Big Bang. And these concepts are all based on what they call theoretical astronomy, which makes predictions based on mathematical models. So a lot of science here. But let's look at 3 and the importance of the number 3 itself. 3 is a triad, which contains a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's the body, soul, and spirit. As a spiritual number, seeing 3 means your guardian angels are always there to help them when you need them. So when I see 3, I go, oh, okay, there you guys are. And in the religious sense, that triad is the Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. So the vision and the message tells us this Holy Trinity was completed. The Holy Father had birthed consciousness awareness from the Holy Spirit, and now the Son, remember sun/sun was born. So let's break down them even further. Research tells us that an event horizon, like you said, is associated with a black hole. Its boundary in space and time is so great nothing can escape. And that's precisely what you saw, Candy, and what the messengers reported. So it's another affirmation, if you will. Next is the Stargate. Stargate is kind of a wormhole created by that excessive gravity of a black hole. So the message again was spot on with literature, scientific literature that explains how a wormhole is created. And then we're going to end this particular trinity with the Big Bang. And from a scientific perspective, it's the theory of general relativity proposes that the Big Bang began with a singularity. You didn't know that,
No.
right? Okay.
Right.
So I'm just laughing. Once again, this information confirms vision in the message. In case people haven't followed us along and think you're making this up, this is following science and stuff you didn't know. These findings are remarkable, even unbelievable, but it doesn't stop there, Candy. As the Big Bang occurred, when the singularity exploded, something else happened. And can you tell us about this?
Sure. As that Big Bang occurred, the energy from above, according to the messengers, crossed the soul of the singularity, and it anchored itself into our dimension. Okay? Now, remember that all of this began with the formless becoming form. Formless was this dark void, and we had these waves of dark energy that crashed into the center of the creator. And when it did, according to the messengers, it produced awareness. And now this new awareness, quote, observed as form, grew from the formless. So awareness created consciousness. Now, Donna, a lot of us, including me, use the terms awareness and consciousness interchangeably. But the messengers say that awareness created consciousness, and that the energy of conscious awareness, both of them combined, anchored from above into our dimension. So it created a vertical pillar of energy. The Big Bang created the horizontal pillar. It was the explosion of the singularity. So now we have two intersecting planes of energy, a vertical and a horizontal. They combined, and when they did, they anchored the as above, so below concept with the as within, so without dimensions. So look at this. The vertical and horizontal energies overlap to do what? They form a cross. And where the pillars intersect, we have this magnificent beating heart. It is the soul of the singularity. Now, if I didn't get it before, which I did not, I see it now. That beating heart, that bright light represents Jesus. So the messengers, by blending symbols from cosmology and religion, sun and sun, they have just depicted the crucifix, a cross with the heart of Jesus. It's the singularity. That's where the pillars intersect. And I didn't realize this symbology, the crucifix, until I was preparing for this episode. And Donna, what a huge symbol. I can't believe I didn't see it before. It's so obvious. But let's go a little farther. And although the singularity representing the sun/Jesus had shattered, its essence, representing the Holy Spirit, remained as this beating heart of light, sending life force energy to all that is. So imagine this, with every beat that there is, more and more life force energy continues to go out. Now let's bring in the religious aspect of the Trinity. We've got God the Creator, Jesus represented as the soul of the singularity, and now the Holy Spirit as the essence of the singularity of Jesus as it exploded across the horizon. Now, think of that religious interpretation, that religious overview, as we read from page 211. The Creator hurled his own sun from the center of his being into the new universe. As the energy from his sun exploded within the newly formed universe, the multiverse formed. This is when that as above, so below, as within, so without concepts manifested. And in that next paragraph, about halfway down, it manifested, quote, as a great multidimensional star, a Merkabah, the great symbol of life from which all life sprang. It came to symbolize the energy and power behind all creation. So when this great celestial object, representing Jesus and the singularity, exploded, it became even greater. It became that multidimensional star of a Merkabah. Now let's think about a Merkabah. We've learned about this in previous chapters. It is a star tetrahedron created by two intersecting pyramids. One points up, the other points down. And when the pyramids begin to spin, one spins in one direction, the other spins in the opposite direction. When that begins to spin, this star tetrahedron becomes a vehicle of light. And at that point, it becomes a Merkabah. It becomes a vehicle of light. And the symbol is considered a pattern for all creation. That's an important part that you've talked to me about in the past, Donna, of sacred geometry.
It is. And so I want people to understand what the sacred geometry images are. And there's a really good website that explains it in detail. And we'll put the link in the website below. It's www.consciousawareness.info/sacred-geometry. And I'm going to read a little bit from that website, just so you get an idea how important this is. Sacred, quote, sacred geometry is a universal language that describes the inner workings of nature and the intrinsic order of the universe. It is the natural sanction that unites all forms of life, from microbes, plants, animals, humans, that means flowers, Candy, to the motion of the planets and stars. And sacred geometry shows the quality of, this is really important about how related we are, shows the quality of relatedness between unique and different and individual differences, right? So they're individual, and demonstrates how diverse elements can be organized into a whole while still preserving their individual uniqueness. So as we become awakened, we people, end quote, we realize that we're not separate. We're not separate. We are what sacred geometry explains. We are unique, diverse individuals, but we're part of a whole and still retain our individual uniqueness. There's about 7.6 billion of us, each having our own experience, but we're made from the same stardust, if you will.
Donna, when you mentioned stardust, we've mentioned this before too. In the book, I talk about this physicist who has told us how we are literally made from stardust. So that's amazing. But when you mentioned this website, you mentioned it to me yesterday, and I checked it out. On that front page, on its home page, I saw Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. That man inside a circle with multiple arms and legs all spread out. Well, that brought me back to this experience that I had. And I describe it in the second book, The Reluctant Messenger Returns. It's in chapter 9, Metatron, part 1. But I didn't even know what that was. But
I can stop you for a minute, man. Candy, I never saw that picture on the website. When I looked for it, I went right to the wording, but apparently I am drawn to words and you're drawn to the picture. But what you were meant to, so that you would know that about how it tied into chapter 9. I'm sorry, I interrupted you there.
No, I just love it. I went to the pictures You, being the college professor, went to the words. Me, I like pictures. I like crayons. I'm like a kindergarten student. I just look at what's sparkly. But,
Andy,
Donna,
I was going to say, you got grandkids and you worked in elementary school, so of course you're drawn to pictures.
but I'm always amazed at these synchronistic findings that we get during the podcast or when we're preparing for them. And you and I balance each other out so well. But let me mention something else that I didn't know until I was preparing for this episode. When we look at the Merkabah, the star tetrahedron, when we draw it on paper, in other words, when it's flat in a two-dimensional form, it looks like two interlocking equilateral triangles. It's a six-pointed star that's associated with a lot of different cultures. I had researched this and I put in the book that this flat star tetrahedron represents the Star of David from Judaism. But I didn't realize that the 3 points of one star represent creation, revelation, and redemption, while the remaining 3 tips represent man, the world, and God. And did you know this, Donna? Mormon architecture uses this same 6-sided star to represent the union of heaven with our planet. It shows humans reaching toward God while God reaches down toward us. Is that not exactly what the messengers had just said about anchoring both of those dimensions? I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, that's so cool, and it's another triad. So creation, revelation, and redemption, and then man, world, and God. And I did not know that about the Mormon architecture, but I do know about the Sistine Chapel, where God and man are touching, almost touching, not quite. But again, the Merkabah is another is triads because it's 2 triads. To me, it represents that as above, so below. But the 2 remind me of the yin yang in Chinese medicine. And since I have the microphone, I want people to know it's called yin and yang, not yin and yang. Don't say that. And if you talk to me, you got to say yin and yang. It's much more elegant, just like this whole creation is. So I just wanted to tell you that. So let's go back to 211 for a sec. And we're going back to the second to last paragraph. And it's summarizing what's happened so far. So as a teacher, that's important that we recap. So I'm going to read from that. And so it began. We were created from light. Those pieces of the divine light are the star seeds that were sown. For light that was scattered from the beginning came from the great central sun, a great magnificent star. We are those sparks of light shot forth from that sacred stargate. We are pieces of the singularity. Now, that's a huge shift in the message, but you'll miss it if you're not paying attention. And now we see that Jesus, the sun, those are all interchangeable. And this is the soul of the singularity. When it explodes into the universe, it creates the multiverse as we witness the Big Bang. And my friend Nathan would call this, if we're talking about the sun, it would be the Easter Proclamation. And that would be the resurrection. That Jesus, the Son, when he explodes into all of us, we are pieces of that. But tell us more about that. This is uniquely fascinating to me, Candy.
Well, this was remarkable. All of a sudden, as I'm getting this message, I have this profound and pronounced shift in energy. And I started speaking in first person. I was no longer just documenting the words that had entered my awareness. I began speaking them. So when I reread this, I had this epiphany. The messengers had said it, but I didn't really understand it till recently. Let me kind of back up and recap.
Okay.
The soul of the singularity is Jesus. The singularity, that brilliant condensed source of light. And it shot out through the universe. It created the multiverse. And this light, this singularity, merged with all beings. And Donna, this new energy, this brilliant light is ushering us into a new earth. And especially when we talk about the new order of Melchizedek, and it's like a few paragraphs from here, but I'm jumping ahead. After studying the POE, the point of existence, we now know what's happened. I began speaking in first person because my POE had just slid toward the mystical. In other words, I've dialed up my experience. I was no longer simply observing. My POE, my awareness, had become an essential part of the message and the vision. So when I get to the part about we are pieces of the singularity, it's like, aha, it finally made sense. So let me take that just a little bit further. We've now kind of come full circle because the energy from those divine sparks created the Merkabah. And since we are pieces of the singularity, naturally I started speaking in first person, for I was part of this. So now I get it. I understand the process behind what happened, not only intellectually and emotionally, but it's like, oh yeah, it's that POE sliding. I didn't during the vision and during the message, but now I do get it. But anyway, getting back to the vision, now this Trinity was complete. But then as this newly formed multiverse expanded, the messengers say the Trinity began to separate until the part where we became lost. And that's at the bottom of page 211. This visual component of the message was easy enough to understand, but it's easier if we think of a Merkabah as two flat triangles. Okay, so as we have two flat triangles, as they start to separate, the top separates from the bottom. That represents the separation of the Holy Trinity. It separates the as above from the so below. And when that happens, we become unaware of our connection to Source. We're lost. We become like sheep wandering from the shepherd's fold. So now we have a gap between the two triangles, the two pyramids. This is what the messengers have told me refers to as the veil of forgetfulness. This is why we come to Earth with no knowledge of previous incarnations, of connections to our soul groups. I mean, this explained it all.
So let's go to 212. They talk about us being the expressions of the light of creation, and it says, we are created from the magnificent light source, the great star, the sun, the great sun of the universe. It is part of us, and we are part of it because we have come full circle. And if you go down in that last paragraph of the message, the messengers talk about a new light. In fact, that next paragraph. That new light that was cast off from the great central sun during creation. This energy was different. It remained intact as a huge photon belt. So here's another concept. This photon belt is now part of the ascension process, for it's awakening the star seeds that are within us that we're talking about. So the energy of the photon belt is similar to the energy of Source. What do you know about the photon belt, Candy? Did you know?
Well, Donna, I know a lot more about it now than what I did 3 weeks ago, and certainly a lot more than what I did when I was writing the book. Last week, when I'm getting ready to, prepare for this episode, it's like, okay, maybe it's time that I do some research on the photon belt. And I discovered that it is a band of interdimensional light, and it passes through our galaxy, the Milky Way, every 26,000 years. And some believe that Earth passes through this as part of a spiritual ascension. That's exactly what the messenger said. But let me unleash this. First of all, when I wrote this book, I didn't do a search on a photon belt. I wrote this book before I retired. And I was working like between my job and helping babysit the granddaughters when I'd come home from work. I was averaging 50 to 70 hours a week, plus writing a book. I didn't have a lot of extra time on my hands. So I didn't even think about doing a deep dive on the internet to learn about a photon belt. But truth be told, Donna, I figured it probably didn't exist, that it was probably just a metaphor for energy from source. So imagine my surprise this week when, first of all, I discovered that it did exist. Now, once I learned that, I couldn't help but wonder, was this what had been responsible for all that energy I had? Remember, weeks working up to this vision and my 5 days of these interpretations, it had reduced my sleep from like 8 to 10 hours a night to 2 or 3. And I think, yes, this was probably where the energy came from. And the message said the energy is like the energy from source and it's part of the ascension process. Well, it literally had me ascending like at 2:30 every morning with enough power to make this whole body run. But Donna, I discovered this while I'm preparing for the episode. In fact, just this morning, I read a couple articles on 2 websites. I want to share them with you. One was Even Star Creations, and the other is New Earth Knowledge. Now, researching the Photon Belt uncovered so many validations from these websites. It blew me away. Now, once again, Donna, we know this is not new for us. We do this all the time. But not only reading the chapters will it give us a different perspective. Maybe we weren't ready to see things from that point of view, but we are now. But all right, Donna, give me a drum roll here. Okay. I'm ready to make an announcement.
Oh, my.
I have been keeping notes, what a surprise, of our discoveries. And I've decided that, Donna, they're just too important not to include them in the book. So I have been crazy busy working behind the scenes these past few months to do just that. I've already sent the manuscript to the interior book designer for formatting. So hopefully you will see a second edition of The Reluctant Messenger to be released next year in 2022, hopefully in January.
That's next month.
I know,
that's this next month. My God, you've been so busy. Oh my God.
I know. But you know what? This YouTube channel is still very appropriate and relevant. But with the different edition, it's going to throw the page numbers off here and there, but the messages are still the same, and it's going to add more depth and dimension to it. So some of what we've been unleashing in these past 24 episodes, Donna, they're just too important not to update the book. And Donna, I have you to thank for this, so thank you. But getting back to my recent research, learning about the Photon Belt and the role it plays in our spiritual ascension was this aha moment for me. Spiritual evolution, this is something the messengers have been telling me about time and time again. It's our evolution, Earth's evolution, bringing us with her into higher vibrational frequencies. So all of this checks. Now, some of the things I learned this morning, the message from the messengers talk about a central sun and a great central sun. Well, I was surprised to learn that there are 3 suns that align with the galactic center: our sun, the central sun, and the great central sun. It's like, are you serious? But not only that, they say that this alignment, according to what I read on Even Star Creations this morning, produces, quote, significant spiritual shifts. Once again, documenting about this big shift in our consciousness. And the website says that people transform to be the son of our true self, the son of God, Christed one. Now, Donna, it's worth repeating. People transform to be the son, S-U-N, of the Son, S-O-N, of God, Christed one. It's another direct connection to the words of the messengers, that sun/sun connection. But it gets even better. Even star says the alignment of these three suns, three referencing the Trinity and the Triad, that alignment triggered the December 21st, today's date, my birthday, 2012 shift that we talked about. Remember chapter 5, Cosmic Contacts, December 21st, my birthday, and the day this video is going to be released. But this shift, according to the messengers and this new information, said that energy sensitive people would change. So I got another wave of cold chills when the website referenced, quote, a new sun that, quote, downloaded light codes, new light codes. And why? If these light codes were preparing humanity to, quote, step it up and become more at peace within and shine their light. Donna, once again, back in chapter 5, Cosmic Contacts, remember I had this series of dreams and messages where I learned that our sun was changing. And our cosmic friends had given their sister star, our sun, a different set of energy frequencies to help heal our planet. And soon after that, in my dream, our Earth's great star, the sun, morphed into a lotus blossom with 1,000 petals. That was a perfect analogy for spiritual transformation caused by changes in our sun. So this is something that I felt was too important not to put in a second edition. When I had the dream about the sun's rays changing into a lotus blossom with 1,000 petals, Donna, I didn't even know that represented the crown chakra. I had to look it up. But now I realize how symbolic that 1,000-petal lotus is, because it represents a spiritual transformation. You know, I couldn't believe all of these connections. We have that December 21st, 2012 shift. We have the great central sun, the sun/sun connection, the photon belt, Earth's evolution. We have a new sun with new light codes and evolution for humanity. But this discovery this morning just rendered me speechless. It's like this last minute research pulled together so many aspects of what we've covered in the book.
I love that you did the research just this morning, because it shows people you had these messages, you kept the notes, you wrote them down, you made a book. It's just this morning. It's on your birthday.
Yes.
No doubt they picked this day, the day of December 21st, just for you. I find that amazing. And I think my guardians were spot on by having us do this YouTube channel, because both of us, we've learned so much more than just, you know, like reading it or writing it, but by speaking it and researching it. So I'm very excited about you doing a second edition, and that it should be here pretty quick. So all this new research, Candy, confirms you, the messengers, what's happening in the scientific literature, the awakening of consciousness of people on Earth, and a lot of consciousness. And I think that's maybe why they asked me to do the Exploring Consciousness podcast. So many people are awakening and need a guide or a path to help them know how to perhaps handle the new energy, or, you know, what to do with their new consciousness. But they need to know, everyone out there, you're not alone. And all of this, when we do it all together, is a consciousness entrainment, if you will.
That is so true, Donna. It really is. Let's go to page 213. And I want to read a section. It says, on this edition, it's the top of the page. Yeah. That first sentence says, the shepherd is calling us home, back into the flock from which we came. And as this new energy reaches us, entrainment occurs, which is exactly what you were talking about. And when we view these two sentences from both religion, the shepherd, and science, entrainment, you know, this is what we're seeing all along. It's a multidimensional approach to the vision. In physics, entrainment is when something vibrates at a certain pattern, certain frequency, and then the surrounding energy fields begin to vibrate with that very same pattern and frequencies. I remember what Einstein said. He talked about spooky actions at a distance. He was talking about entanglement, where you have two particles, although they're separated in space, one still acts the same way as the other. They both act as one. They are entrained. They are vibrating at the same frequency and pattern. Now, the messengers say that the Merkabah is a sacred symbol, sacred geometry. And when we see it, we should know that we're from God. It is that symbol of creation. It's the return to that great central star, sun/sun. Remember when I began speaking in first person? At that point, I became, with my POE sliding toward the mystical, I became part of the process. I was no longer the observer. I was in the experience. When we become part of cosmic consciousness, well, we already are part of it, but when we begin to recognize that we are part of cosmic consciousness, we then know there is no separation. We are in perfect unity with all that is. I am you. You are me. We are expressions of the Creator. Remember what the messenger said in that very first paragraph of the message, and I'm paraphrasing, but they were saying that He is everywhere and everything, and that there is nothing and no thing that He is not. Yet He had this desire. He wanted to express His oneness. So let's just recap what I've seen. Here's what happened. These forces came together. We had creation. Consciousness was birthed through Jesus, this sun/sun, as represented by that singularity. And that merged with all that is. And with the merger of the singularity, Jesus, the light, that became consciousness, we became sparks, star seeds, sparks of the divine. Going back to the very beginning, remember that message said there was nothing but a dark void? This was the ultimate of the Creator expressing His oneness, creation. He was expressing Himself through us and all living things.
Candy, that was a great recap, and you can tell how much that is bringing back for you, as if you're reliving this.
But I mean, Donna, that's exactly what creation is.
Yeah.
We merged with all that is. We are those divine sparks, that great light of the Creator. We are the expressions of consciousness, of awareness, of creation.
I agree with you. Let's go back. I hate to move on because it's such an emotional moment. Let's go back to the next to last paragraph on page 213, where it says the Merkabah is symbolic of the new order of Melchizedek. Now that's a lot to unpack in one paragraph. The messengers talk about the Merkabah being a sacred symbol, the symbol of creation, the return of the great central star, sun within. And we've already discovered how the star tetrahedron is used in different religions and its connection to sacred geometry. But now the messages bring something else in the chapter, the new order of Melchizedek. You got to tell us a little bit about what they meant by that.
Donna, I had to do some research. Jesus was a high priest in the order of Melchizedek. That order was a lineage where the title passes through a very specific ancestry. But this is a new order. It represents current times. It is a lineage accessible to all. This new order of Melchizedek ushers in a great awakening, one that, through a divine vehicle of light, the Merkabah, will transport us to unseen realms of love and unity. This next to the last paragraph ends with these two sentences. it says, ye are born of the great central sun/sun. Allow that sacred star seed within to awaken. It all begins to make sense. Everything came together. The images, the interpretations, this multidimensional approach connecting science with the spiritual. I realized consciousness is a singularity that is merging with all beings, and it is ushering us into a new earth.
Yeah, wow. That's a lot to take in. That's a lot there. I'm going to finish it up on page 213 on that last paragraph. And it said to you, come, dance with me. Dance with me in this light that shines ever so brightly from within. Come dance with me through this beautiful new energy that has been given to us. Come dance with me, O ye children of the light. Come dance with me in the light.
Okay. I've got to interrupt you here.
Okay.
With this, which is probably the last aha moment from the book.
Okay.
And this is why this last one, like this seals the deal on why this YouTube series begged for a second edition of the book. Once again, until I prepared for this episode, this had never come to mind. Although I'm surprised it did not, it should have. But I guess it's the benefit of 2020 hindsight. That lyrical message, come dance with me, oh, you children of the light. Who was this from? Oh my gosh, the muses within. Those messengers who had given me that first message about a flower being a flower of energy. Now, let me tell you the backstory of this backstory. When I had this epiphany that the muses had ended this message, then my POE, my point of existence, slipped back into that vision of creation. Because when you're in that energy, we know that time doesn't exist. And I had these tears of joy that just slid down my face, down my cheeks. I felt cold chills and the hair on the back of my neck stood up. And I knew all these other messengers were here with me. I saw my cosmic friends from Alpha Centauri, from Chiron, from the Pleiades. There were all those unnamed messengers, the ones that taught us about time and how it works, the dream seed classes, and that dot that you loved on at the point of existence, the POE. I felt the presence of angels, religious icons from the realms of light, and then White Buffalo appeared. So here I am, a few days ago, standing once again in a space where no time or no space existed, surrounded by my beloved messengers. I thought about the past 2 years. The messengers had proven themselves to me. I had not just become a believer, I was a knower, for I had firsthand experience with so many mystical events. And as I yielded to this role as messenger, I realized I had returned to my beginnings. I had become a flower of energy, of information. Yet I never imagined that these mystical beginnings would have led me to an even more significant beginning, creation.
Yeah, I don't think many people have seen that. I can't even imagine. Well, you know, it's got to be mind-blowing. And what a perfect way to end a chapter about creation. And the last words you were getting were from another beginning, your muses within, who had given you your first message. So we've truly come full circle. Something that we've seen the messengers do time and time again. And in a sense, Candy, this chapter represents you. If you think about it, you began as this grounded, down-to-earth scientist, driving to school. You became transformed by the world of the non-physical. And these non-physical entities that you've been communicating with for 2 years at the time of this vision created a messenger, you. You had become the flower of energy, the flower of information from that first message.
Yes, it's Donna. I had become that flower of energy, and the most powerful energy surge of all came with this vision and the different interpretations. You know, the messengers had answered many questions in my research in the past, and even this morning showed the probable reason for that surge of energy that I had, that one that turned me into a resurrected runner, that this had come from a photon belt that the earth had passed through as part of a spiritual transformation. But every single piece fell together. It's like they fit. And this puzzle was almost complete,
Okay.
except for one piece. And we talked about this in the last episode. When the messengers told me that on that 5th day after having these different overlays, different interpretations of the vision, that I had become an instrument for the messengers. I was a representative of the word of the messengers. And as an agent for the messengers, I had been assigned a task, like your tasks that you're always giving us, to interpret and unveil these words to those who were ready to hear. Yet these lessons and ideas would be shared through my words. Now, I want to read the last paragraph of the book on page 214. My words. These were not the words of a prophet, an ascended master, or a saint, but the words. Donna, I'm going to let you read the last paragraph, if you would, of the book.
So I'm reading for Candy, so I'm speaking for Candy. My words. These were not the words of a prophet, an ascended master, or saint, but the words of a common, everyday person who had stepped onto the path into the unknown. I may never know the reasons why I had been chosen to be a representative, but I realized my acceptance of this challenge had transformed me. As I processed these new responsibilities, the boundaries of my life as a reluctant messenger dissolved to make room for this new role, this role that had changed my life's course from an ordinary path to an extraordinary journey that had already enriched my life beyond measure. End quote. Candy, they certainly picked the right flower from the right garden, and you wouldn't have seen the transformation. And the messages are all about transformation. But during our interview, when we were talking in our Exploring Consciousness podcast, I got a message from my messengers. Why don't we unleash this book as a book review? You know, that's the teacher in me. I thought it was just going to be a book review. I never would have known how much this would transform both of us. So, Candy, I want to thank you because people don't know all the hard work you've done behind the scenes just for this YouTube channel, let alone, I think I'll just do some editing for a second edition. So when I needed you the most, because of all the stuff going on with me and helping me think through all of our talking points. So to me, Candy, you're such a great friend, and you're the ultimate messenger for all of us. You're not the reluctant messenger, the ultimate messenger. So thank you for your yes, your sharing, your wisdom, and I truly, from the bottom of my heart, I'm honored to be your friend. So thank you. So again, I got to go from something very emotional to something very professorial. Okay, pull out your homework from a couple of episodes before, because we're going to be doing a bonus episode. All these tools of consciousness that we've gathered from the messengers. And I'm so excited that the Reluctant Messenger will have a second edition, and I can't wait to read that one, Candy.
Donna, thank you so much. And I, you know, as an author, I guess I'm supposed to be a wordsmith, but I don't have the words to express what I feel towards you. I mean, all the work you've done. You have become such a dear friend. And we laugh because we tell people that we're twins. And I do have a twin sister, but you are a soul twin to me. We balance each other off so beautifully. And you know what? This has been a lot of work, but I'm amazed how much I've learned as I prepare for each chapter. These new perspectives make me appreciate the timeless wisdom from the messengers. I didn't see some of the connections before because I wasn't ready to see them. It's been such an eye opener for me. Now, I'm also glad that I am the one who does the final edits on the video. The audience has no idea how many clips are lying on the editing room floor. I've cut out so many of my tears. Donna knows how teary-eyed I get, but she knows just to be still, and within a minute or two, I'm back on target. But you know, eventually I push through the tears and I complete my sentence sometimes. But Donna, thank you so much for everything you've done. And I thank your guides and your messengers for suggesting that we start this channel. And I want to thank our audience. Thank you for coming along with us on this adventure. We love hearing from you, so please feel free to comment. You can also share the video. There's a little button that says share. You can share it on your social media. Keep subscribing. We love subscribers. I think what we'll do is we'll work on our new episode, our bonus episode, and I think we'll just plan on releasing that the day, we'll record it, but let's release it the day that the second edition is published.
Fantastic. Yeah. So subscribe. Thank you. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Happy holidays.
And until next time, we love you guys. Love you, Donna.
Love you, Candy.